one.
Hello, I'm Nuala from Camberwell Arts, and we're delighted to be joined this evening by Rhondda Rhiannon, the director of Black Widow, the female-led horror short that you've just seen, which follows the lives of 3 young women who run a very lucrative business profiting from the fetishisation of women of colour. So I'm going to be asking Rhondda a few questions, and then there's going to be a chance for us to open it up for questions from you. So if you do have a question, just pop it in the reactions or pop it in the chat and I will come to you. So Rhondda, thank you so much for sharing your film with us as part of Camberwell Arts Festival this year.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thanks for having me.
I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background in films and filmmaking.
Yes, so I am an actor and I've been acting for a while now. And last year I was auditioning for a horror film and I'd gone through the first few rounds of auditioning and then it turned out that I didn't get the part. But the audition process was so enjoyable, and the fact that I love horror films too made me feel really inspired and motivated to just go and make my own. So I started thinking of a few ideas, and I wanted it to be Black female led, and I wanted them to be the protagonists. I didn't want them to be victims. I wanted them to be glamorous and independent, and I knew the aesthetic I wanted. So then I kind of built a storyline around that, and it ended up being Black Widow, and that was my first film.
Fantastic! It's amazing. And you wrote and directed and acted in the film short, which is like quite an undertaking. Could you speak a little bit about your process in making the project come to fruition?
Yeah. So I spoke with my producer once I'd written the first draft of the script, because I wanted to see if she would be interested in getting involved and if she had the contacts that we could use to make this happen. And she was amazing and really helpful and really shared the load of everything that we needed to sort out. So on the day of filming, we shot that all in one day. She was sort of co-directing with me. She was my eyes when I was in front of the camera, and then we worked really well together. Everyone was so helpful. So it sounds like a lot, but it actually all came together quite seamlessly.
Wow, amazing. That's incredible. And the film addresses the racial fetishization of women of colour, which is a long and loaded history. Could you tell us more a bit about your motivation for addressing this subject matter in your film?
Yeah, so it's really just personal motivation. I've been called exotic, and I've had comments in the past, oh, I've never been with a Black girl before, and things like that. And I just thought it would be an interesting spin to have the women profiting from this. So the clientele that they'd be getting would be predominantly white men, and they'd be thinking they're going to be experiencing some sort of exotic night, whatever they've imagined, and then it turns out that they're going to be eaten, basically. So I just thought, I don't know, it was just quite amusing to put it that way and just imagine something like that actually happening.
I like the idea of turning the idea of consumption of women, turning it on its head into the consumption of men. Did you have any thoughts on previous horror movies that you took as your inspiration for this?
I didn't actually. Not so much for the content, but what I felt was lacking in horror was what I put into this film. So that would be where my inspiration came from, because even though horror is my favourite genre, it's very rare that you find Black horrors, and I don't even know if I've ever seen another Black female-led horror. So that was really the gap that I wanted to fill.
Okay. Who are your horror movie heroes? Favorite horror movie?
Yeah, so my favourite horror film from when I was younger is House of Wax, and more recently I would say it has to be Get Out, but there's also another one on Netflix called The Perfection, which I would highly recommend. It's really disturbing.
Disturbing and creepy. So I'm quite interested in the fact that you've used the horror genre and comedy to address the issues around racial fetishization, because I personally haven't seen a lot of this. Could you speak to more about your choice of using horror and humour to look at this subject?
Yeah, I just felt like it really went together. A lot of the Black experience, I think, could lend itself to the horror genre if it's dramatized and put in such a way, because you know, racism and things that we experience like that, they are quite disturbing and traumatic. So when you put that in the context of horror and you sort of turn the tables, I guess in some ways it is funny in a really dark way. But the comedy aspect of it wasn't really intentional, but I've actually had that feedback a few times now, and I'm glad that I managed to do that somehow.
Oh, it's hugely interesting. So just before I open it up to the floor for anyone who has questions, could you tell us a little bit more about your upcoming project and what's next for you?
Yeah, so I was meant to be shooting the next horror short in May, but that's been delayed, and due to COVID and everything. So I've actually been using the time to work on some other pieces. So now I will be looking to shoot the next short as soon as possible, really, as soon as we can get a crew together and get everything up and running again. But I'm not sure if it's going to be the horror that I had previously set to shoot, or if it's going to be something else that I've been working on.
What have you been working on? Do we get any sneak information?
It's a comedy.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we'll just leave it there as a comedy.
And will you be writing and directing and starring in it?
I'm writing and directing, but I don't think I'll be starring in this one, no.
Excellent. I'm just going to check in the chat here to see if anyone's got any questions, or open it up if anyone would like to ask any questions to Rhondda about this film or any of our upcoming projects. Okay, so this is from Laura. What is it that draws you to short films as a form, especially with horror? And how does the short form help this genre? It's a great question.
That is a really good question, so thank you. So I was drawn to shorts because I feel as though they're very digestible, and for someone who was starting out like myself, I'd never made a film before. I didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. And in terms of how shorts and the genre horror go together, I think they complement each other really well, because it gives you the opportunity to sort of hit the ground running and end on a cliffhanger. So it's a nice sort of duration to build enough suspense and also keep the audience interested, I think.
Fantastic, thank you. Just check to see if there's any other questions. Oh, this is just another comment from Laura saying, it's amazing that this is your first film. Has being an actor helped you to be a film director?
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, so I do really think that helped. It wasn't really a conscious plan to sort of get into filmmaking, but as an actor, I just thought I should probably grab the bull by the horns and start creating the content that I want to see. And I did study creative writing as well, so I thought, why not? Yeah, was there any more to that question? I can't remember.
I think it's has your perspective on acting changed how you've directed?
Yeah, my perspective's definitely changed. I think, if anything, I'm probably more picky now, because I know how I want things to look, rather than just being sort of on the receiving end.
Absolutely. It was an incredible... Does anyone have any more questions that they'd like to ask to Rhondda?
Are we late?
No? Well, honestly, Rhondda, it's incredible that that was your first film, and I really, really, really cannot wait to see what you do next and what subject matters you address in new and surprising ways. Thank you so much for sharing the film with us as part of the festival this year.
Thank you for having me. It's been really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.